Oh, there's the light. No, there's some light up there. Stay dry now, please.
Mostly stuff about the lost continent. So, kind of the idea that the South, over slavery, but the number of this, that, and the other. There were black and Confederate soldiers, weren't. There was. Well, during its technical 3 days before the war ended, the government, Southern government, allowed the black soldiers, like, last night. So, yeah. Well as like the North having resources, Southern soldiers were, Southern generals were more capable in that the North would be wanting outstanding resources. Part of it, but not entirely true. Okay. All right, currently it is hot. I need to be a lot.
Hey, Chris, can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you.
Awesome. I went out and got some water from their thing
That's
out
what I
out there. For this.
I like your server be muted.
We're not muted.
I like your sign.
Oh.
Can
You hear us, Chris? Hello. I'm fine.
Yeah, yes, I can hear you.
I like your sign.
Oh, thank you. Willie, my oldest, made that.
Really?
Yep. It's old palette, and then he got with Davis and cut out the letters on the plasma tape.
Plasma. Mhm. That's really neat.
Thank you.
Terry, we're running a few minutes late, so I got in here late. It's all right. That's fine. I'll grab some food too. Oh, it smells so good. It is.
See your head? Have you seen it? Okay. Sorry. That's okay.
It's not the cedar. Oh.
Let me see it. The cookie dough too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Good to go. Now some challenges to keep it off. That's empty bars. Continue walk.
You know, I work on put something.
Well, I would have won if I had such a time.
That's true.
Get that sign behind Chris. Welcome to the Meat Grill. What is that, like a restaurant?
So did it.
We already been through this.
Yeah.
I missed it. His family does do a lot of catering and stuff. It's really good. And then Michelle, and I work together. He said he's.
I'm fine, thank you. Good to see you again. So many years seeing you and you in school and spelling.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fine. Well, it was intense, you know. As an advocate. A, B, B, I. That was
We have a
fun, though.
particular.
Yeah. What'd you say? I said not before
Oh, no.
5:30. Well, I think we're doing fine. I'll just let people and Jesus. It's just now. Well,
Something this morning. Did you guys hear that about? It was like going through doing Thanksgiving dinner on the budget. They were saying that, I thought this was unusual, that bacon,
I heard that.
bacon was the biggest bang for your buck. So they had bacon tomato sandwiches.
Yeah.
Then instead of mashed potatoes, they had mashed lima beans.
Yeah.
So.
One of the reasons I like to be.
I know they were like, hard to mash. The family for $45.
Thanksgiving is good.
Where is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, bacon bits, there you go.
Yeah, and part of what they did was get this baby food. Remember them? Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah, green bean baby food. They said that wasn't very good. And instead of pumpkin pie, squash pie, which I do like. No, it wasn't. It was sweet.
Sweet
potato.
potato. I can do sweet potato.
Squash pie.
I'm thinking here.
Yes, you are.
If it's mixed right, you heard itself a difference. Yeah. Yeah, very much.
Sometimes the color.
I guess there was abundance of sweet potatoes this year. So, wow, that must be the only thing there's abundant.
Maybe pick up a cake. On Sunday.
Okay, we're gonna call the meeting order. If you would you call the roll?
Happily. Jim Barnes, Mike,
Here.
Dave Elliott,
Here.
Jim Hewens. Herb Carr,
Here.
Brian Holt,
Here.
Robert Johnson.
Here's standard meeting, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have no comments from the chair. We have no comments from the public. Item C, the audit report, Terry.
Meeting, board of trustees, management of the college. I'm Terry Searchman with Gil, Bamber, Bolton, CPAs, and Fort Scott. I'm glad to be here tonight to go over your audit with you. If you remember the old room, well, first I should ask, are there any new trustees from last year? Okay. You too. Well, I'll give a little bit more detail. There's two parts. There's the bound audit and there's the loose letter. Pull out the loose letter and let's start with the bound audit. Because the bound audit has what's our audit opinion, which is pages 1, 2, and 3. I don't want to say how many years ago I started auditing. There's many years ago, the auditor's report used to be 1 page long, and now it's moved to 3 pages long. And it's not because Terry has become wordy with his audit report. We're required to put verbiage in the audit, and everything in there is required to be there. I think the important thing is the second paragraph on the first page. The second paragraph, which says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above presents fairly in all material respects the financial position of the college as of June 30th, 2022, and the changes in its financial position and cash flows for the year then and in accordance with general accepted accounting principles. So this is what's called unqualified, unmodified opinion. It's the highest level of opinion you can give. If there was an issue with your tuition billing or your payroll, we'd have to say, well, except for payroll was messed up or whatever, we'd have to qualify the opinion, but there's no qualifications, an unmodified, clean opinion. So even though there's 2 more pages of verbiage after that paragraph, that's the important paragraph. It says there's no clean opinion, fairly presentation of your financial situation. So you go to page 4, it shows your balance sheets, and page 5 shows the revenue and expenses. These are just the basic financial data of the college, what your assets were, your bills for the end of the year, your long-term debt, and then of course the actual tuition and grants and everything on page 5 compared to expenses. We still had kind of a tail end of the COVID in 2022, and that still kind of affected a little your financial position, but it wasn't that bad a year. You did pretty decent this past year. So that's the financial data. But if you turn in accordance with the audit, we also verify the financial, but there also are statutes we're required to check to make sure you follow. There's a checklist of statutes. So if you turn now to page 15, excuse me, 14, there's a section called Stewardship, Compliance, and Accountability. Whenever that section is long, that's usually a bad sign, because that means we're citing violations of statutes. Well, if you look on that section, it's 2 sentences. There were no violations of Kansas statutes that we came across, and we have a checklist that we're supposed to verify. We saw no instances of statutory violations. And I want to tell you, that's not a given. Probably 4 or 5 audits a year, I have at least 1 or 2 statutory violations, because it happens. If something happens, you just fail to meet the statute. But this year, there's no violations of the college, and so I want to make sure you see that, no statutory violations. Now, the rest of the pages, 14 on, in the verbiage, there's a lot of wording we're required to put in there about colleges, receipts, revenues. There's information about your long-term debt, starting on page 18. You guys got another 1.5 million last year for the the PERF project, if I remember correctly, for $1.4 million, and a lot of improvements made there. But the rest of the information is just data about the finances of the college. I don't want to go too fast, but there's just a lot of verbiage there. Nothing really I feel like I need to touch base with you on. But I would like you to go back to page 43. Because starting on page 43 is the federal compliance section of the audit. You hire it to be your auditor and to give an opinion on your financial statements. So we have to verify statutory compliance and statutes. But due to the level of federal aid received by the college, we become federal auditors too. We become agents of the federal government, and we're required to follow guidelines established by the federal government. And so our audit's much more involved because of that. And of course, your biggest federal program is shown there on page 43. The first 4 or 5 programs there are your student financial aids, your SCOG, your Pell Grants, your guaranteed student loans, your college work study. About in the middle of page 43, you see about $3.6 million of federal financial aid just to students flowed through the college this past year. That's a significant amount for impact in the community. Those of you, maybe some people think, why do we have a community college? There's a lot of benefit coming here because of that money and the aid to the students to get that groundwork done. A couple of years of community college work before they go on to ESU or wherever they go to. That's a goodly amount. 3 or 4 lines further down, there's something I call the COVID-19 grant. That's really the CARES grant. About in the middle of the page, $2.7 million of CARES money. That was, again, COVID-related money that the college received last year. And We had to include that within our audit this year because it was such a significant amount. So we, the rest of the audit is on pages 43, 44, 45 on is the federal audit, and reports are required by federal guidelines. Well, I guess the important thing is page 48, which is our audit findings. You can see material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, no. There were no sightings that we need to follow a report on to you about federal audit requirements. Because believe me, there was a bunch that we had to verify, especially with the new CARES money this year, that there were no violations of federal regulations either. And again, that's not a given. Sometimes we have to cite those as well. But I'm glad to point out you had no violations in that regard. So in a nutshell, the Common Audit Report, which after you guys, the trustees approved tonight, we will require to file with the federal government online. In a nutshell, we have a clean audit opinion, no violations of campus statutes, and especially for federal purposes, no violations of federal regulations, because the Fed doesn't like violations either. So clean audit, 3 different areas, and I'm glad to point that out to you. Unless you have anything specific about the bound audit, I'll move on to loose letter. By the way, that's a credit to the college. They have a clean opinion. It's not a given. Things happen sometimes. There's no reason at all, it just happens, and I'm glad to point out the no violations. It's something not to be taken for granted because it's a credit. The actual loose letter is something that's required again by our standards, and it's Brian, if you were on the board last year, you can get last year's letter and compare it to be exactly the same. It is verbiage we're required to tell you in writing about the audit. If there are violations of standards or internal controls, we'd have to point those out to you. If you have issues with management, for example, while I was working at the college, Alicia would not talk to me about the college. Julie refused giving me data I needed to know. You as a trustees would need to know that. I'd have to tell you that in writing. Well, I'm glad to point out there were no issues in that regards. Everything we got was in clean. Management was very responsive to our inquiries, and I think I bugged them for 2 or 3 months this year during the audit, but it was a very clean issue, and so no problems, even though I'm required to tell you in writing there were no issues. No issues in that regard. And again, sometimes I have to point out problems, and glad to point out there were none. Now, I'll back up a second. Remember last year, for those of you here last year, we didn't have a violation of a citing and had to put in the audit with the reconciliation of bank accounts. And that was something I had to cite in last year's audit. That has been straightened out. I know Julie and her staff have spent a lot of time figuring out how it got off and why it got out of balance. And for 2022, the last fiscal year, it's now fine and in balance. And so that's not a finding this year. And like I said, findings are, it's not every year you don't have a finding, and we didn't have that finding this year to clean it up. So that's all I have for you, unless you have any specific questions.
Gary, this is really good to hear. I have no questions unless somebody else has a question. Well, this is a credit to Julie E. I really want to say this is a super good report, and it falls directly on your shoulders. I appreciate it. I appreciate everything you do.
Now I'll have to say, 2 of her staff members used to work for our firm. We trained them well. I'm joking. I mean, they're very good workers. And I'm glad.
Nothing else, Terry. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just add finally, first page, there's a phone number down here, our CPA firm phone number. you're shy, don't want to ask me something tonight, but tomorrow morning you say, I really want to ask Terry about something, you can call me at that number. Try to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Like I said, I enjoy working here, and plus, my home is 5 minutes away. And go home. So thank you all.
Well, Terry, it's always good to hear that there's $3 million coming in and
Oh, yeah.
that and going into.
That's a heck of an economic impact, that money coming in, helping kids get an education, which is important. Thank you all.
Thank you. Before we get started in this, I'll tell you, I've got an infected eustachian tube in my ear, and I can't hear very well on my left ear. And I'm also kind of spitting and coughing a little bit, so I'm not, what's it called? It's not catchable or whatever. What is it? Contagious. Thank you. Okay. Approval of the agenda, approval of minutes of previous meetings. Attached are the minutes of the regular board meeting conducted on October 17th, 2022. Approval of treasury report, bills and claims. Attached to the treasury report and the bills and claims report. Approval of personnel actions. Separations, Janet Fancher. Sorry to read your name. VP of Student Services effective December 31st, 2022. And Louis Grubb, Director of Financial Aid, effective December 31st, 2022. I'd really hate to see you go, Janet, but I think you've been a tremendous asset to the college for many, many years. It is recommended that the consent agenda items be approved as presented. I'll entertain a motion.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Quickly on
Sure.
the treasurer's report. I want to make sure I'm understanding this because I've looked at it for however many months now. And when it shows in the first column on page 7, it's got the 4 months and then the actual for last year. And so like when we look at revenue for the dorms, we're a little behind budget if I'm reading that right.
Right,
And
and you're talking about the 1-page report.
correct.
Financial.
Yeah.
Page 7, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that just a timing thing, do you think, with the
Some
dorms?
of it is timing because we can't report it as revenue until it's paid,
Okay.
because we're on a cash
Uh-huh.
basis. Some of it is as a little lower occupancy than we had planned.
Okay. So I'm trying to wrap my head around some of this stuff. I want to make sure I'm reading it right. So thank you.
Some of it is no football players. I mean, that's some of it for sure. It will be interesting to see what happens next semester in terms of dorm occupancy. Football is a program that we couldn't retain those students well from fall to spring because many of those students were going on, of course, to play ball and go play spring ball somewhere else. I think Tom said that we had quite a few applicants for the dorm, but we are down, and I would say that it's probably directly due to football.
And I don't remember which meeting it was, but I remember when we looked at projected occupancies, they were pretty high.
Yeah.
If I recall.
And we never know, but
So
sometimes we.
It was probably with budget because we usually get projected occupancies.
I see.
Yeah, and I think we do. Actually, yeah, we try not to budget more than we think we're gonna be occupancy. And like I said, we have to average it out over the year.
Mhm.
And so we will know better when we get honestly to April and see what the average occupancy for the year was. Typically, we've gone down drastically from fall to spring. Occupancy will go from literally, 90% down to, 72%, something like that. So we'll see if it holds or not.
Okay. Thank you.
Entertain a motion to vote on the consent agenda.
I move to be approved.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. Julie, would you call for the vote?
Elliot,
Oh, yeah.
We concur.
Hewens, Hart,
Yes.
Holt,
Yes.
Nelson,
Same thing.
Yeah.
Arlsmeyer.
Yes.
We very much appreciate all the hard work you've done.
Thank you.
What page number do we need now? Is it 67? Okay. Alicia, this is your thing for the Bailey dedication. You want to read this?
Well, I don't really want to read it, but.
Okay. Well, we've all got it on.
Yeah, you can see it.
Okay.
I thought it was really nice of Mr. Mayhew. I just want to say thank you again to the Bailey family and to everybody that participated in the dedication. I did think it was really nice. And like I said, it really was all hands on deck. We had hoped that, of course, it would be complete, but we're still working on that. And it was remarkable how we turned that around. Everybody else did anyway, and got it ready to go that day. Rick and his wife Shelley, who have been incredibly supportive of the college, and Rick is a graduate, of course, of the college, Rick Mayhew, who wrote this. And he was also a friend of Robert Bailey's. Rick's father was the president of Western Insurance Company, and so that's how he knew Bob Bailey. And Rick is an interesting fellow. He's just so knowledgeable and generous. He visits, and he is a friend of Warren Buffett's, and so he has always been the individual that has hooked our business students up with having that trip that they get to go visit with Mr. Buffett. And in the past, of course, Deb, our instructor that is now retired, took them up there. And it was with students from literally schools like Harvard and Northwestern and places like that. So it was really cool. He did send a photo of the actual school that Bob attended, which is the one-room schoolhouse. And he kept that on his desk because he was so proud of the fact that he started out in a one-room schoolhouse. You guys will know better than I where the Custard School is. I think it's actually over on the Missouri side. I could be wrong about that though. But that is a photo now of this one-room schoolhouse, and he kept a picture on his desk of that. So, but it was nice of Rick to write that. He visits with Tom a lot as Tom has put him on the foundation board, which has been amazing. And he is just so thorough and looks at things and is looking at our investment options and seeing what we can do there. So.
Okay. Administrative updates. Chris, you want to start?
I'd love to. Yeah, so it's been a good month since we met last, as far as a few things, and I won't spend a ton of time, but we started our first CDL class last Monday, and it was by design. I chose students who already had a learner's permit and some other paperwork done, so that we would have a chance to kind of make sure our processes that we had in place were good. And I've learned some things. We've been working with Community Health Center, CHC, on the DOT physicals as well as the drug screen. And so I found out that we need to do an authorization so that those forms come directly from CHC to us, which eliminates the chance for a potential student to alter or doctor a drug screening, and so we know it's legit that way. So that cost is like $105 per student. So we're probably going to, what I'm leaning towards doing is requiring a registration fee of $105. So that's covered by the student. I can give them the authorization form, and then doing that in enough advance so that we know if they're going to make it through the DOT physical. We had a student that we started with, it turns out he was red-green colorblind, which is an immediate disqualifier. So it's one of those things where we're learning. Sorry, we have a train right here by the house. You can hear it. It's drowning me out. But it gives us those chances to look, and our students have been great. We've told them up front, hey, we know what we're doing on the teaching side. We can get you there, but some of these processes, if you can kind of bear with us as we work our way through, and they've been very, very good to work with. We have 4 students, 3 of them, I say that, we have 6 students total. We have 3 that are working on their CDL Class A with a combination vehicle. One of them needs his Class B CDL, and he's working at a business in Girard, and so we're going to pilot through our workforce AID grant with him. And then we have 2 students that are working on their school bus, passenger school bus CDL, and we're going to work with them as well on the workforce AID grant. So it gives me a chance to see what that process is like as well. We went to Salina Tech. Salina Tech has an outstanding program and picked up a lot of great ideas and information. Of course, they were more than willing to share. And so we have a folder on each student where we're keeping track of all the documents, a copy of their driver's license, a copy of their learner's permit, their physical, drug screen, everything's in there. The Truckers Against Trafficking, which is a little video they have to watch, and there's a certificate that goes with that. And as Mike and I were doing it, they don't do this at Salina Tech, but that folder, when you're done, it will have every documented minute you've been in the vehicle. It has our comments as instructors saying, or trainers saying, you know, first day on the basic skills course, did really well on the straight line backing or whatever. But we decided to make it a duplicate. So the student has one that they're keeping and we have an identical one. So it works out to be a portfolio resume when you go in to get a job and like at the school districts, they need a copy of your Truckers Against Trafficking and all of these different things. Well, our student can hand them that folder. They can copy what they need and they have everything in one place. So kind of excited. I think that's really going to be a positive thing for students as they leave our program. I'm going to look into maybe working with the sheriff's department on a defensive driving certificate that we could add to that. So just some of those little things that kind of can go on the side, but are very beneficial when you talk about going to an insurance company and saying this person is safe to be on the road. So that's kind of fun. It's definitely a unique class in that while, you know, we're setting things up and working down here, it's something that I talked to Tri-Valley Developmental Services in Fort Scott, and they also serve Chanute. And if she has 4 to 6 drivers, for example, that would need trained, you know, we might have one day where we need to be down here because our locked filing cabinet is here and get the paperwork started. But like the ELDT theory is a PowerPoint that I could take to them. And then when we start driving, we can actually go to certain locations if we have students that we can work with and schedule our drive time right there. So it's really, while we're based at CTech, it's a little more fluid. It's a lot more fluid than that. Being business and industry training, we're not talking about students in dorms. We're not talking about federal financial aid. It's the students I did get a setup in Kansas Works, and we're waiting for their approval. So they should be able to assist students that are coming through and not using workforce AID. So it's going to be a significant program. I am positive. I have 37 people on a waiting list right now, and we have not, other than some newspaper articles, like when we signed the agreement with Department of Commerce, we haven't done much advertising. So I kind of want to make sure we get through this class for pilot class that we're running through here over Christmas break. And then once we hear from Senator Moran, if we are able to get the congressionally directed grant and get trucks, we really have the potential for this to take off and start advertising. And I think it's going to be a real big positive for Fort Scott Community College. Questions about that?
Yes, when you really ramp up and get up to speed in doing this, and let's just say you get your trucks, how many students can you accommodate per session? Is that what you would call it, or what?
So it's a great question, because we're doing 8-week sessions. Department of Revenue has a lot that I don't want to say they dictate a lot, but they have certain things that we have to do, and it's for the best for sure. So they're 8-week classes. We can do somewhere between 6 and 8 students per trainer. And part of that's just the number of hours in a day. So to only be behind the wheel for an hour a day is, in my mind, a little light. So I've looked at doing 90-minute sessions or for an hour and a half. So somewhere between those 6 and 8 students, if we have some students that need to do it nights and weekends, we can kind of fluctuate with that as well. And so with 2 of us, so I did find this out from Revenue. Michael is going to have to get his passenger and school bus endorsement, and I'm going to have to get my combination vehicle in order for us to do the exams for those particular licenses. If I do it for the state, I can do it with a Class B, but it changes when we're third party. But fortunately, Michael can give me the ELDT training and the behind the wheel training, and when we're ready to test, our Department of Revenue representative will come and give us the exam, so it shortens that up. But with 2 of us, we're talking 12 students in 8 weeks, and then so that gives us, our plan is 2 8-week sessions in the spring, 1 in the summer, and then 2 again in the fall. So you know, the trick with it is truly the volume, because it's such a one-on-one type training. Once you get behind the wheel, we have the sleeper cab and have made progress on getting our truck up and running. It's actually a really solid vehicle. And with a sleeper cab, we can take a seat out of a vehicle and put it in there, and you could take 2 people on the road. So if you were going to do a longer trip, hey, we're doing a 3-hour drive, trying to see a little bit, get into driving in the city somewhere. But generally speaking, you're talking about more or less one-on-one instruction.
Okay, thank you.
If we were to get our trucks, I think we would be in a position where, whether it's part-time or full-time, looking at another trainer and trying to get up to where if we were doing 18 per 8-week session, you know, that would be a significant income, really.
Sure.
One of the things too that Chris and I have talked about is we're going to alternate. So we would have a class that starts every 4 weeks. So one instructor starts and the next instructor starts. And we're trying to get some more off ramps. The Department of Revenue, you can shorten up the 8 weeks, but the Department of Revenue right now is saying we at least need to do 6 weeks. We had hoped that maybe we could do quicker than that, but they're saying, no, you need to do at least 6. And that's the Kansas Department of Revenue. But there will be that exit before, and there'll be some that exit later. As he said, we have one right now that's having a little bit of trouble in terms of his physical exam, and you know, he's had some back issues and some things like that that we need to get worked out. But once we get the trucks and we get going, and you don't have to use the truck that you have now, we'll be in better shape. So
it's a Johnson Farm special. It actually worked out well. Our tractor, getting it up to DOT specs, required tires and some other things, and they called us late. We were planning on starting on Monday, and I got a call Thursday or Friday saying we're not going to have it ready. So Alicia, we went down and got one of their trucks, and
he was really chuffed. Okay.
Chuck helped us out. And our tractor should be done. As far as I know, it was finished up today, so we just need to get the trailer through down at Payne's. And like I said, the mechanics all absolutely love the tractor. The engine in that particular vehicle is good for 1 million miles or more if it's taken care of. So But yeah, it's exciting, and Department of Revenue is really willing to work with us. As I was talking to him, even on the timing, like Alicia said, I said, if we have someone who has had years of experience behind the wheel and they're coming in because they lost it, they let it lapse or whatever, and now they need to get it back. He said, yeah, in a case like that, call me. If they're ready to test and you're confident, then I'm willing to work with you on some of those cases as they come through. But kind of the rule is going to be 6 weeks at the minimum. They can go over the 8 weeks if they absolutely need to as well. So
we'll have some that finish earlier, but like I said, I greatly appreciate all the work that Chris and Michael and Adam have put into this. It really has been a heavy lift, and I think it's going to be truly beneficial. Like he said, he will come to Fort Scott for Tri-Valley, and anybody else that wants to do the training here. It's a little bit different than some of our other programs. It's not for credit. You know, the kids don't bring in any federal financial aid or anything like that. It is strictly business industry. It's mostly those people coming in the evenings and on the weekends and do a few things behind the truck. But I think it will truly be beneficial. And like we said before, the workforce aid grant through the Kansas Department of Commerce, that allows not just private business, but public business to be able to utilize those funds to get people trained. So school districts, counties, cities, and of course, private businesses as well. So we're excited about that.
And it's very much a regional, a positive thing for the whole region, because I've had someone from down near Coffeyville all the way up to Ottawa that has talked to me about being interested. Chanute, I've had interest from there, Iola, the county. So it's going to be a far-reaching program too, I believe, and our goal is to be one of the best schools in the state. When the Department of Revenue says you want to go to, we want to be on the top of that list. So yeah, it's exciting. It's just exciting to kind of get started even and get things moving. We did have a couple other things we had all of our advisory boards have met for carpentry, welding, masonry, and HVAC. Those were really good. Tommy Myers, our CTEC director, has done a good job and has reached out to some additional businesses. Like McAllen Gordon is doing a big project for the middle school down here, and CTEC students toured, and with that, he brought them into our advisory council meeting. And so all of our board meetings were really good, went really well. I'm excited. We have more welders that will graduate in this cohort in the spring than we've probably ever had. I think we're around 50 total, from Miami County all the way to Pittsburgh, and our class sizes are good, and those are real solid. So our advisory board members were glad to hear that. With that, we also had Fort Scott High School staff come down and tour CTEC, and then their instructor that they're looking at teaching the NCCR and teaching carpentry at Fort Scott High School. For concurrent credit, he stayed for our advisory board meeting. We're setting up monthly meetings to make sure we keep moving the ball down the field with them. And so I think early December, Adam can correct me if I'm wrong.
Weekly meetings.
What's that?
We're in the weekly meetings now with them. So
weekly.
At Thanksgiving, we're going to be with them weekly.
Okay. So we're really wanting to move on that, and they're really invested, which is exciting because I think we have plenty of things that we can start working towards with them that'll be a huge benefit to Fort Scott High School students and the community college. And I'm excited about that aspect. I think that's going to be very, very positive for everything. And so we're in that one and going to keep moving that one down the field for sure. So that's kind of the highlights. Any questions? Anything else?
Any more questions?
I don't have a question, but just kind of a comment. Bourbon County Ready facilitated 3 visioning meetings, and the third one was held last week. And I think this pertains to probably some of Chris's area. One of the the goals that came out was related to increasing housing in the county and specifically for increasing opportunities in construction and trades for students, which I'm pretty excited about. I think it'll be good. I don't know what that looks like, but I think the intent is to get all of these entities, you know, school districts and college and city and county kind of working in the same direction. And so hopefully we'll see some of that funneled our way.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really cool. I mean, I think getting everybody together on the same page and we've all got the same goal. There's a lot of opportunity when we're all pulling together to accomplish something. I think it's all going to have a big impact or positive impact on Bourbon County for sure.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Julie E? Sure. You want to just say, this is what I.
Yeah, basically, you got the report in your packet. The only department that was missing was IT. And he was out that day, so he couldn't get it to me, but they've been doing a lot of work in Bailey Hall since the renovation project was about done. So they're beginning to move departments back. They've installed some of those big screens that you've seen on the wall if you did that tour. They've also done some work in Arnold Arena of upgrading some of the network and audio equipment and getting that up to date. So, and then, you know, they're kind of looking towards cafeteria remodel. They don't have near as much involved in that one as Bailey Hall, but they do have some. Done some work in the theater, but yes, you have a report in your book, and not much has changed since then, just winding down things that we need to meet with students with, trying to catch them while they're still on campus and get those things done. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Tom?
That the college was awarded from Kansas Board of Regents a $20,000 student well-being grant, which will go significantly towards our stock in our food pantry. And as of this afternoon, we were actually able to get a bunch of winter clothing in there as well. Thanks to Chris Barnes and Key Apparel for that. We were able to get some nice coats and hoodies and stocking hats and whatnot. Our goal is to be able to get those in there before the students left for winter break. So if they don't have a coat, they can grab one and actually have it. But we have a significant amount still to go with that as far as the funds that are remaining. And so I'll be working with other entities around town to not only provide clothing, but also hygiene supplies, which Value Merchandisers does a great job with that, but also food as well to get that stocked for when the students get back. Finals end tomorrow, and so our students, with the exception of the basketball teams and cheer and dance, will be out of the dorms. When they're out, we usually really harp on maintenance and work with them to try to get everything cleaned up and prepared for a new group of students coming in. We do have more applicants scheduled to be able to come, and we have more that are coming than that are leaving, and so that's a good thing, good problem to have. But other than that, we've been going through working with the coaches, trying to award the specific foundation scholarships that are athletic based. So some donors, they will designate a specific scholarship to go to a Kansas basketball player, for example. And so we're working with the coaches to make sure that those awards get handed out so they can students time on their bills or need to be paid for enrollment for next semester. And other than that, I would be interested in any questions.
Tom, would you mind mentioning about the Bourbon County waiver and how we're going to
Sure, yeah. So the Bourbon County waiver essentially requires a student to fill out a form with our admissions program, which then goes to financial aid, which then gets credited to their account. And that's for students who enrolls in classes up to 15 hours, gets their tuition waived for the semester. We looked into the process a little bit, and there's also a Bourbon County High School waiver, which covers one class that they don't have to pay the tuition for. And we're looking into specific students this year, and just determined that it's a better practice for us just to not have a form. Just because if you live in Bourbon County, it doesn't matter if you fill out the form, you should get your tuition waived. And so we're getting rid of the form, cleaning up the policy and practice a little bit. And so we're going to run reports periodically throughout the semester, seeing Bourbon County students who are enrolled in our classes, and we will just waive their tuition without the need of a form. And so that we have run into a few students here and there the past few semesters who either didn't get the form completed because that's a thing, they don't like filling out forms, or they just didn't know about it. And so we, by being able just to do it for them, it'll clean up a lot of that and give everyone who's entitled to be able to get the Bourbon County tuition waiver actually receive it.
Okay.
Also, high school students in the past were only getting one course that would qualify for the Bourbon County waiver. Now, if they take 3 courses, then they will have tuition waived for all 3 courses. So we feel like it's a benefit to the Bourbon County residents that pay taxes here, and we want to make sure that we appropriately honor the fact that they're doing this. I think it'll be a much easier process, and I appreciate the business office and everybody looking to see how best to handle that. And so we're going to go ahead and state that for this semester. So we'll back it up and see if we've got anybody this semester that didn't get it, we'll apply it to the high school students and everybody. So it will be an immediate effect.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Janet?
Just to point out a few things that were in the report that I submitted. The admissions department has gone to several college planning conferences, and they brought back 263 prospective student inquiry reports. So I thought that was a good kind of return on investment for them going to those CPCs. When a student applies to the school, the admissions department texts every student that fills out an application with, here's your next step, here's the process. And oh, by the way, here's the scholarships that you need to apply for also. And so for the last 2 months, they've sent out over 700 of those text messages to students. And so I think they're doing a really nice job of reaching out, contacting those high schools, contacting those counselors, and trying to get those high school students in here. Along with the pantry things, the ambassadors that kind of run through the admissions office help stand up that pantry. They come in there and that's their volunteer hours, and they work in there. And so on average over this last semester, we've had about 40 students per week that have come in to utilize the pantry. And so I think that's also kind of a good sign that word's getting out and students are coming in when they need things to get those from the pantry. The HEP and CAMP programs both submitted their APRs, and they exceeded all of their government requirements for what their grant says they're supposed to have, and so that was a good thing that they finished. TRIO's APR won't be due until probably February is typically when that comes in. The TRIO program has had multiple visits to 4-year universities with their students over the semester. Just this last month, they've done a FSCC workshop, they've done a mental health workshop, followed by a here's how you can relax and get ready for finals painting kind of activity with their students. They've done first generation college students and their billboard things have been out here. They brought in the Native American display to share with us, and had a program also for all students, not just TRIO students. So I think they've done a very nice job at reaching out. And again, since we get past Thanksgiving, we'll work on getting them all moved back over to Bailey Hall. And once we didn't want to move them while students are still here. We wanted students to be able to find them. And so we left them as they've been all semester, and we'll move them back over to Bailey Hall. And that would be nice to have them kind of back up in the student services realm. Kind of on a personal note, I want to thank Alicia and the board for my almost 20 years here.
We appreciate everything you've done, Janet, and you've done a lot. Adam?
All right, well, just a couple of things. One is
tends to be a little more boring than everybody else's. From a data perspective, we're working on fall census right now. And that's where we certify our enrollment for the actual fall, our actual enrollment for fall. We have that due at the end of December. We do a preliminary report and then we can certify fall census, which is more in-depth at the end of the semester. Along those lines, Chris mentioned advisory boards. We still have 3 more left this semester. Harley Davidson, Ag, and EMT Allied Health will be for our 3 that we have left. Working at the state level right now on a general education core. So, you know, up until about a year ago, when we sat in on a meeting today, till about a year ago, the central part of the United States, each state, if a student was at a community college and took 30 credit hours at a community college, each institution within a state public institution would take at least 30 credit hours as a core transfer. And they could pull apart and say, no, this won't transfer, this won't transfer, that type of thing. Kansas was the last remaining state to institute a general education core. And so that is on board for implementation in fall of 2024. It'll be between 34 and 35 credit hours that will transfer to any in-state institution, and it's a package deal. A student takes those core classes here, no matter where they transfer publicly in the state, it has to be taken as these are the 34 and 35 transfer credit hours for a student that completes those, which is definitely a good thing for our transfer path students. Part of that is also math pathways that is being discussed in the next few years. Students on a STEM path will be required to take college algebra. Students on a non-STEM path will take either quantitative analysis or quantitative reasoning or elementary statistics, depending on their program. So the state is doing away with the requirement of college algebra for a baccalaureate degree. So just kind of some, and we're a couple of years out on that. I think our preference would be we get the gen ed core to have that aligned with that. Tom and I were on that meeting today. The Fort Scott campus wraps up finals tomorrow. So most of our transfer general education courses are done tomorrow. Still, some of our other campuses have another couple of weeks left. And, you know, we've pushed for a long time that technical education is college level. It is absolutely college work. The latest KTIP report, which is the technical education report that looks at all your graduates and that sort of thing, came out this week or late last week. And our graduates in technical fields, their average salary when they graduate and are employed is $46,000 a year. If we look at nursing, which I appreciate everybody attending nursing thing, our average nursing student salary is just above $63,000 a year upon entry into the workforce. So I think that says a lot to what our technical fields do, what our workforce does, and that type of thing. And I definitely appreciate everything Chris does and working with helping get a lot of those students employed as well, and our instructors. With that said, I definitely want to say thank you to everybody this semester and the instructors for a really good semester so far. As we're getting toward the end. And I guess that's my time to do. The last thing I have is we will have, and I'll touch on this again in December, we'll have in-service either January 9th or 10th. Our in-service committee will meet to kind of outline that next week, but it'll be January 9th or 10th for spring in-service. And we're talking about a couple of things that that we're hoping to incorporate into that. But I just wanted to put that on everybody's radar. You guys are more than welcome to attend in-service on the 9th or 10th. I would stand for any questions.
Nobody has any questions, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Okay.
So my report, as he said, we're finishing up finals. This is a new schedule for us. Well, it's new since at least 2020. And so we'll kind of see how it works. We have some surveys out to determine if students feel like it's beneficial, faculty, staff, and then the committee will take a look at the data and make a recommendation on our calendar for next year. I can tell you that sometimes it works for our students on the main campus. It may not work for our technical students. We haven't implemented the schedule for technical students, and I can tell you that a lot of it is simply logistical. We have a lot of high school students that come to those sites. And, you know, if we were to finish now, those high school students really wouldn't have anywhere to go for 3 weeks. And so we try to match up better, especially when we're talking about the technical programs with their sites. I do understand that they were telling me that, excuse me, it might be an issue with nursing and John Deere, so we may take a look at those as well. But it's something that we want to tweak and make sure that it works for everybody. Of course, we talked about CDL. I did want to reiterate in my report some information about the Kansas Promise Scholarship. That Promise Scholarship, we implemented that last year. We haven't used a lot of those. It is a, excuse me, it is a last dollar scholarship, but it is for eligible students in eligible technical programs, and not all of them actually are technical programs, but if the student signs up for the Promise Scholarship, thank you. They can get, of course, tuition, fees, and even supplies. For instance, nursing students that need uniforms or shoes or, you know, anything like that, the Kansas Promise Scholarship will pay for it. What happens for the student is that they have to agree to work in Kansas for at least 2 years. And so they do have to sign on. We did get to add a program, Fort Scott Community College, I mean by we, and we added we had John Deere Tech as our ag program, but we also got to add farm and ranch management. And so we're hopeful that we have students take advantage of that. It really is a wonderful deal for students. As you can see, you can look through there, of course, construction trades, you know, nursing, welding, all of those things are in there. A lot of you are here. Jerry Moran has stopped by to visit with us, and it's always good to have Senator Moran stop by. We're very hopeful that we will be successful with the congressionally directed grant ask that we have in. Hopefully we will know in December. We have asked, I think, for around $400,000 for 3 tractors and 3 trailers for the CDL program. He had an opportunity to tour John Deere Tech, and he was very excited about that. We made the Jerry Moran newsletter, and so I put some of that in there as well. The Gordon Parks Museum, of course, Kirk Sharp does a wonderful job over there, and he did receive, excuse me, an award from the Kansas Museum Association, and it was on his project, which is the film scene trail. And so they have, of course, scenes up at the actual locations where they have signs up, is what I meant to say, at the scenes where those were shot. And that really is unique. And of course, thank you to Ralph too, who works on a lot of our grants. But Kirk does a wonderful job. He's also got Gordon Parks' birthday celebration on November 30th. Yeah, you can come out for that. We had a first generation trio day. I know Janet has talked about that, but one of the folks that was showcased was Robert Nelson. Your picture is up there. Did you see that, Robert? First year. I thought it was really nice. It talked about those students, of course, that are first generation college students, and we actually have a lot of those students. Just to kind of wrap up tonight, as we end the semester, of course, you can see that it takes so much knowledge to move this institution forward, and it takes all of us. You know, there's just no way one person would even be able to manage all those things that we have to do to meet staff, you know, like Terry Serter talked about, or when it comes to the federal government, you know, those kinds of things that we have to make sure we have in place so we can receive federal financial aid. The historic knowledge that we have with our faculty and staff is truly amazing. The passion for student success is truly amazing. Our instructors, our staff, our executive team, the board, it really is a joy to see people that really want to see students succeed. When we talk about historic knowledge, of course, I feel like I have another month to visit this Janet Fancher thing. But because she'll also be here. So I can tell you that I was kind of holding out. I mean, I knew she was going to retire, but I hadn't received the letter yet. So, but you know, that the kind of dedication that Janet has shown, we will talk about later. But it's what makes this institution successful. It's what makes many of our students successful. And a lot of the time, we do not talk about successes as much as we should. And success is relative to where our students start. We may not have tons of Rhodes Scholars, but we have many, many successful students in their personal goals and their goals in life. And they have moved themselves and their families down the road. They've been more successful. They've been personally more happy. And they have made our county and our state and truly our nation a better place because of what our people do here every day. And it really is where the rubber kind of meets the road. We're really doing good things. And I think those good things show. And so I appreciate that. Like I said, the historic knowledge that Janet takes with her, her passion for student success is really is not replaceable. So we're going to keep her around to do some other things because we can't do without her. But I want to thank her in advance. And like I said, we still have a month to maybe talk her out of it. So with that, I would stand for questions.
If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Meeting was adjourned. Thank you.
Just be really